From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 540, recorded December the 2nd, 2024. It's brought to you by Delete Me, Smarter World, and ExpressVPN. I am Jason Snell, your usual host, but I'm not doing all the stuff that usually is done by Mike Hurley because Mike Hurley is on assignment. And so sitting in for Mr. Michael Hurley today is our very special guest, Mr. Stephen M. Hackett.
Oh, I got the initial.
Yeah.
Fancy.
I wanted to introduce you as Stephen M. Hackett. But that's a little bit weird. Now, I'm inspired with the... sorry, I'm going to make a little baseball tangent here. I apologize.
Okay.
The Giants radio broadcasters, John Miller, Hall of Famer, and Hall of Fame broadcaster, and David Fleming. Dave Fleming is introduced by John every time as David B. Fleming. And it's like it's his dad introducing him, and it just makes me laugh. So I thought I'd give you the Stephen M. Since your middle initial is part of your public persona, I thought I'd throw it in there.
Yeah. I really tried when I first started on the internet to make it really real. I included it everywhere, but it sort of faded over time. But we can't talk about baseball because we have a Snell Talk question.
Thank you. Bless you.
About baseball.
Oh no.
I'm giving Kevin credit for this, but many people wrote in about this. Kevin said, "What will happen to the Snell family jerseys now that Blake Snell is moving on to the hated Dodgers?"
Okay. Do I have to explain what this means to you?
No, I understand. My context of this is listening to Upgrade.
Okay.
So
yeah, you know about it. You know all about it from listening to a computer podcast about
that's right.
Baseball. Yes, Blake Snell, who is not related to me in any way, was a Giant for a year. He signed a 2-year contract that was very clearly only going to be a 1-year contract. And he opted out at the end of the year. And during this year, we bought a lot of Snell-branded Giants merchandise. Mm-hmm. And now he has signed as a free agent with the hated Dodgers. This has had... Okay, so a lot of people have asked about this. First off, I don't really care because the whole point here... I'm not really a Blake Snell fan. He's great. He threw a no-hitter for the Giants. It's awesome.
That's right. I know that from listening to the award-winning Upgrade program.
Yeah, indeed. We're a very popular baseball podcast, and the separate a very popular podcast that's also sometimes about baseball, but they're not connected. So
that's a different show.
He's fine. He's fine. He's an interesting pitcher. But my prime interest in him is that he has my last name, and if he comes to your team, there's a whole bunch of Snell branded stuff that you get to buy then. So he spent a year on the Giants. It allowed me to buy a jersey. It allowed me to buy a T-shirt. It allowed me to buy a T-shirt for my daughter. It allowed me to buy a jersey for my wife. We all had a good time because, you see, our names remain Snell and we remain Giants fans. So it's fine. It's fine. I'm a little bummed out because he is a good pitcher that he's on the Dodgers now. But at the same time, he's also kind of injury prone and can't throw for very many innings usually. So it's a risk for the Dodgers. They're paying him a lot of money. They're happy to do that. So that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. What's funny now is that my good friend Greg Noss, the Dodger fan, he can buy some Snell branded merchandise and wear that and go, yay, Snell. And he has to do that now because he's a Dodger fan. And that actually kind of delights me. So that's good. Also, I hear through the grapevine that one of his sons works in the baseball industry, and it wouldn't it be amazing if he ended up working for the Giants? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that he is, but I mean, wouldn't that be great if he did? I just would love that. You're a loyal Dodger fan your whole life, and then you get work in the industry. You work where you need to, and it's at the Giants. That just would make me laugh. Anyway, thank you to everybody who wrote in, and I got it on social media. We didn't even mention the other huge Snell news, by the way, from last week, which was on the TV show Star Trek Lower Decks. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, lifelong Star Trek fan. They go to a planet that's got all these people on it with like little antenna on their head, and these little aliens, and they have to hide out for months. They have to live there because they get sort of stranded. And and there's always in when you're undercover, there's always that one sneaky character who's always like looking around for you. And on the old Bewitched TV show, it was Gladys Kravitz, the nosy neighbor who was like, I think there's witchcraft going on, and everybody else thinks she's crazy. But of course there is witchcraft going on. It's what the show is about. Anyway, that guy, the sneaky Snoop guy in that whole episode, who is used as a joke and a punching bag, his name is Snell. So yeah, it was a big Snell week around the old Snell household. So
the Snellaverse.
Wild. Can we talk about the gift of Relay now? I think we should do that. You are a Relay co-founder, so you want to let people know the magic stuff that you and Mike have hatched up for this holiday season?
Yeah, let's do it. So giverelay.com is where you want to go. You can use the code 2024 holiday though if you go through the link in the show notes or on the website. So what's the deal? 20% off all annual memberships from now until December 18th. So for Upgrade, that means you get Upgrade Plus, which is longer ad-free episodes each and every week. I love the Upgrade Plus segments. They're so good. But you also get access to the Relay members Discord and tons of bonus content, like 2 monthly members-only shows, a newsletter, some wallpapers, a bunch of cool stuff. And giverelay.com. So if you already have a membership to like another Relay show and you want to add Upgrade, you can do that. Or you can gift it to somebody else. So say you've got maybe a roommate who listens to Upgrade, y'all do it together and they want to become a member, or maybe you're like me and I think like Jason, like I think a lot of us who are nerdy were kind of hard to shop for. Just send that link, to your aunt who drew your name for the Christmas gift-giving family extravaganza, and they can hook you up. Giverelay.com through December 18th, 20% off. And let's do it.
And this week on Upgrade Plus, we're going to talk about Thanksgiving stuff. So that's
right.
And when there's always something, there's a whole other segment of the show that happens after we say goodbye. It's not like Connected, Stephen, where we do it before. We do it after. It's like an after thing. It's fine. Connected just is very interesting because you talk about like video games and, Mike and Federico talk about video games and you cry to yourself, I guess.
That's right.
Or just show up 15 minutes late. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, we do Connected. We do pro show at the beginning and then we pick titles at the end. Kind of a little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. That's true. There's the title picking at the end. Last week's title was an all-time classic.
It was.
In how nonsensical it is and how much Mike laughed when he saw it as a title suggestion. That was a really good one. And I'll also point out that in your list of scenarios in which you might give the gift of Relay, I liked how they got increasingly less likely as you went along. I was waiting for let's say you're in space. And okay, what will happen then? Anyway, lots of reasons to give the gift of Relay. Look, or have someone give it to you.
RSS cannot be held back by the bounds of gravity.
No, or probability, quite frankly. It's that powerful.
RSS is defying gravity.
Should we do some follow-up? That was a wicked. That was a wicked reference you were making there. We were defying gravity for a moment. Follow-up. You want to handle follow-up? You want to
This is weird. Like we did I can do follow-up.
Okay.
I'll drive the follow-up. So
all right.
Apple Watch plus emergency call. So y'all were talking about like going for a run and leaving your phone behind, something I know that you do quite often. Right. And Upgradian Doug wrote in, isn't it the case with the cellular Apple Watch that you can call emergency services even if you don't pay a monthly fee to your cellular provider? So in doing some homework for this, I'll tell you, it's actually kind of confusing, but Apple says that emergency SOS requires a cellular connection on the Apple Watch or Wi-Fi calling with an internet connection from a nearby iPhone.
So I think I know what this is referring to. So legally, in the U.S. at least, I can't speak for other countries, but in the U.S., legally, if you have a device that has a cellular radio in it, it needs to be able to call 911 essentially.
Right.
Even if it's doesn't have an active plan on it. But the real reason that law is there is so if you're in an area like my house, honestly, my house is like this, where you have Verizon and you come to my house. Guess what? You're not getting a signal at my house. My house has no Verizon or T-Mobile. It only has AT&T. And you have to walk like down the block and then the Verizon shows up. So if you're in a place or you're just out in the woods somewhere, but there is one cell tower. So it's not, you don't have to go to satellite. You don't have to fall back to satellite. And this is the difference. If you're looking at your phone and it says AT&T, you're like, oh, I'm on AT&T. And then you go out further into the woods and it says emergency SOS, but it doesn't say satellite. And then you go further out into the woods and it shows the satellite. That interim step, it can see a cell tower. It just can't see your cell tower. And by law, if you need to call 911, the fact that you're not a T-Mobile subscriber is not going to get in the way of saving your life.
Right. It will roam to AT&T to make the call.
To make the emergency call.
Effectively.
So what I don't know is, so the Apple Watch absolutely has to do that, I think, legally. You have to be able to make an emergency call from a cellular Apple Watch, even if you don't have a plan. Here's the thing, though. I'm not sure whether if you fall and you have the automatic fall detection, do I need to call for help thing, if it calls 911 in that case or not. I don't know, because that's a specific feature of fall detection. I would hope that it would, but I honestly don't know. And the reason I mentioned this in the scenario is not everything is a 911 call. I guess, when I fell and bruised my ribs while running a couple years ago. And I didn't call 911. I called my wife and I said, I fell, I bruised my ribs. I think that's all it is. I can walk. I didn't hit my head. I wanted to let you know, but I'm just going to walk home and go to the ER. And that's what I did. So that's a call that you want to be able to make, which is why I feel like if you're going to have a cellular Apple Watch, you should probably put it on your plan. That's not a 911 call. But I think it's true that maybe somebody can write in. We'll have future follow-up about this. Nothing like follow-up about follow-up. About that's the best. It's finally aged follow-up times 2. But I don't know whether the fall detection triggers it or not.
Yeah, Apple's documentation is a little confusing there. When I experienced you've been in a car accident and your devices call 911, like my phone and watch were with me, and the watch was like going off, right? Because it's on your person, and if the car crash detection, like it tries to get your attention, and you basically have to like stop it from calling.
Right. Yeah. Which I had to do when I fell. When I was running, I had to say, no, please.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a moment of like, well, I didn't hit my head, so I'm going to say no to this because I'm conscious and I understand what's going on. And but yeah, otherwise it triggers. I don't know.
These are all like weirdly overlapping features, and that's even before you get to like the satellite stuff.
Right, because that's my other question is, if you take a big fall with your iPhone when you're in satellite land, does it do an emergency satellite transmission then? I don't know if it does.
Yeah.
Oh, you would have to hold it up to the sky, so you probably can. It's
right.
Yeah, you're right. They all overlap in weird ways. But it's complicated. David Schaub in our chat room is just pasted in an Apple support link with the one word description: complicated. It's complicated is the answer here.
Yeah. Just like Avril Lavigne said,
But it's good to
come on. You just let that go by?
The people on the YouTube version will see me give you a look. I'm just going to let it go by, though. Yeah, anyway, so that's the deal here is, yes, if you buy a cellular Apple Watch and don't put a plan on it and you're somewhere and you need help, you will be able to call emergency services, at least in the US and probably in a bunch of other countries that have those rules. Yeah. But that's it. Just emergency services. You can't place an emergency phone call to your mom. That is not allowed. That's that you're getting around. Can I make a collect call to my mom? No, you can't. You can call 911. That's all you can do. In at least in the US, that's how it works. But it's a good point that Doug mentions, and I think it's worth people knowing that that's what that interim SOS only, emergency only mode means. Is like, just because you don't have cell signal doesn't mean you can't call for help if you need help.
Right. The answer is just don't fall down. Do what you can.
That is my advice. My best advice is don't fall down.
We're not doctors, but it seems good. I wanted to check in with you. You wrote this piece and y'all spoke about it. The Mac is the model. How has response been to that? That piece has been in the world now, like, I don't know, a couple weeks, 10 days or something. How has that been?
I think it's actually been better than I thought. I think anytime you are in the business of writing about and having opinions about Apple, you know this. Criticizing Apple will always get people who will come out of the woodwork to say, but no, Apple is great and everything Apple does is fine, right? Like, there are people who really are, they only want people to be cheerleaders for Apple, which, I've never really been. Like, I feel like I advocate for the users, not for the company. The company has got a lot of money and it doesn't need my help. But more positive than I thought. I mean, there was definitely some pushback from some people. I think maybe one of the reasons it was muted is that the whole point of how I wrote the article was to say Apple itself has solved this problem, and so it's Apple has its own solution that it built for the Mac. So I feel like made it harder to make the argument that it's impossible for Apple to do this because Apple literally did it. That was my whole point. I've definitely heard from people though, and like I understand the pushback that I've gotten that I expected, but I think is more nuanced, is people saying, "But I like Apple being in complete control of the platform," right? Like that's basically the comment that I thought is I think it's the most interesting is. I like it here. I like it in the walled garden. I like Apple having all the payment systems. I like all of that. And I understand that. My problem with that is my argument is that you don't have to change unless you want to, but also that you may not even know some of the things you're missing because Apple has complete control over the entire market, right? There are things, there are apps, there are app experiences, there are website links that can't be made, and so you don't even know what the experience would be. I guess I got a version of that was but Android already does this, so why? And my answer there is I'm an iOS user, and telling me to leave the platform that I like because I don't like their policy, like that's I mean, okay, but that's not my point. My point is that all computing platforms should have some level of the owner of the product being able to install software on it and not the other way, not having the maker of the product dictate what goes on that computer essentially that can run arbitrary third-party software. Plus there's the issue of, and we know a lot of these people who have invested their knowledge and skill set into developing for Apple platforms. And you could say, well, that was their mistake. It's like, okay, but a lot of them came from the Mac, but they're also on iOS. And I would argue they are a large portion of the reason that the iPhone was successful, right? Because they're the ones who developed apps in the App Store. Yep. And they're captives because you can't take your iOS app and run it on Android. You can't. It's not the same skill set. It's not the same language. It's not the same APIs. And so they're kind of trapped. And yeah, it's easy to say, well, just re-educate and become a Java developer and go write Android apps where there's no market for it anyway, or just suck it up and make your money from Apple. They'll take their 15 or 30% and deal with it. But like my point is those are people saying, yeah, just take what you can get, instead of me trying to be a little idealistic here and say it's wrong. That was my point. So not as vociferous feedback as I thought I would get, even though that's definitely out there.
I think that also speaks to the overall feelings in the community about the App Store, right? Like Apple's they've lost so much goodwill over these issues.
And it's their own fault, right?
Yeah.
It could have been, right? Like they could exert, this is the thing that I think a lot of us feel, is they could have exerted an amount of control and skimmed an amount of money out of the App Store while addressing more of the issues that really set people off. And it would have been fine. This is the whole argument of like, well, why don't they want to compete? Because I think they could compete really strongly. And the answer is because it's better to just not compete than to be a strong competitor who would take the lion's share of the revenue from the market. The lion's share isn't all of it, which is sort of what they want to do. But that is the point that I thought, the point about like, I don't want it to be complicated. Like, I get it, but that is sort of my point about the Mac model is, by default, you can't run unsigned software on the Mac. You have to go through lots of hoops to get there. And an administrator or a user can set it to only run from the Mac App Store, which I would assume in any circumstance would probably be the default on any future version of iOS. I don't think it would be particularly different. But, it frustrates me, but I understand it when people sort of say, but I don't want it, so it shouldn't happen. Because the point is, other people might want it, and I don't love it when people say, well, I'm okay, so it doesn't matter what other people feel. Like, that's not a great impulse.
Yeah, if they open it up, it's just an option, right? You're not...
Yeah.
Like with the Mac, right? Again, going back to the Mac as the model. If you want to live just within the Mac App Store, you can. Now, it's not a perfect analogy because there's a lot of software on the Mac that's not available in the Mac App Store.
Right.
But again, you have the
reasons.
option for lots of reasons, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the piece. I really thought about it a lot, and just wanted to kind of kind of see how it was, because sometimes it feels like these sorts of topics are potentially spicy.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had that moment where I was thinking about it, and I got frustrated. I was like, I got to write this sometime. And then when I was writing, I'm like, well, I believe this. I believe that it's sort of fundamentally that if we buy $1,000 plus computing devices, we should be able to put software on them, and that if you're somebody who has a skill set writing software, you shouldn't be at the whims and under the complete control of the platform owner. It just feels wrong, and I know that that's a weird, squishy, emotional and moral argument, but I do really legitimately believe it, that it feels wrong. Like, not leaving the business model stuff aside, it just feels wrong for that to be the case, that this is I don't believe that computers and phones and iPads are computers should be entirely closed platforms that are dictated by the company that makes the OS. I think that is wrong. And of course, what's going to happen is Apple's not going to say, you're right, Jason. I apologize. We'll change our business model. What's going to happen is what is already starting to happen in the EU, which is regulators will say, no, you can't do it this way. And the good news here, I guess, in a way, is that Apple has already built this other model, and they have already used it. Now, the bad news is I mentioned notarization in the piece, and mentioned that there was one example of Apple using kind of notarization as a weapon in the EU.
Yeah.
And the very week I wrote that, there were then some new cases where Apple used notarization as a weapon in the EU.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not a European lawyer again, but
interesting.
Feels to me like they are not going to be able to make that work, because what they basically said is, we've created a new open system called notarization, and while it involves us approving everything, we're not going to use it for evil. And then immediately they said, oh, but we don't like this app, so it won't be notarized by us, which is de facto App Store outside the App Store. I can't see how the European Commission will ever allow that kind of behavior. It seems to be in complete opposition to the whole idea. So we'll see. But what really bothers me is it tarnishes the Mac model, because what it suggests is that second ring of software, which is checked by Apple and signed by Apple, is going to be used as the first ring, as an approval system for apps that Apple doesn't like. Not to protect users, but because Apple has just decided they don't want it. And the example that I've given a couple of times is, if third-party apps could run outside of the App Store, we'd have macOS running on iPad, because all the emulators would appear, and you'd be able to run Linux, and you'd be able to run Windows, and presumably at that point you'd be able to run macOS.
Yeah, macOS is just right there.
Since it's literally the same hardware, you would be able to do that. And I'm pretty sure that's why you can't. Is because Apple doesn't want to do that. And Apple wants either the option to do it themselves or to have nobody do it. Like, I think that's the motivator. But like, I really don't like the idea that even in a system that was open, like in the EU, where there's theoretically this other pathway, if you tried to submit VMware or Parallels for iPad to notarize to get into a marketplace in the EU, I feel like Apple would just refuse to notarize it, and that's not great, right? Like, that's completely contrary. So I don't know. I think in the end that at least a large portion of this is going to come to pass, because I just don't think regulators in many parts of the world, at least, will do it. And the only question is, will it be enough of a fragmentation that Apple just says, okay, we give up. Like, we don't want to have two completely different models for what we do worldwide. We're going to just build this single model. But I don't know. I'm not going to get my hopes up.
No, me neither. You know what I can get my hopes up about, though?
Oh, that's a great segue. Is it the Upgradies?
It is. It is the 11th annual Upgradies. Tell people how they can nominate.
All right. Well, so the way this works is you send in your suggestions, and they are votes, but they're also suggestions for things that Mike and I can look at. And then Mike will compile the results using a fancy shortcut that's really just a Python script that I wrapped in a shortcut to make Mike feel better. And because Mike's resistance to technical things is fascinating, right? Like,
yeah,
I pushed him on this, and I was like, oh, you could do a shortcut. Oh, there's a Python script. And he's like, no. And I wrapped a Python script inside the shortcut and sent it to him. And then he saw it running, and he was like, oh, okay, yes. And now he loves it. It's the best thing ever. But anyway, so he will compile. But we want your suggestions. It will guide us. We make the final decision. Sometimes we go with what the Upgradians want. Sometimes we use that and keep it under advisement. Sometimes it breaks ties. And sometimes it makes us go out and do our own research about these apps that we've never heard of. And why is everybody raving about this app that I've never heard of? And we go check it out, and it's awesome. So that's great too. Lots of great reasons to do it. You don't have to fill out every form or every item in the form if you don't want to. It's fine. But like, we want to hear from you, and we want to know what you liked this year, basically, and what you are liking. So go to upgradies.com. Upgradies.vote will be where you can vote, and upgradies.com will show you all of the previous winners. And you've got a few more days. You've got 11 more days, so a little more than a week. But again, don't leave it to the last minute. Upgradies.vote. And the official Upgradies program will be, we're going to record it and release it on December 30th, right at the end of the year. That'll be our big Happy New Year celebration with our favorite stuff. Nice to go out on a positive note, I think.
It is. Yeah.
I like it.
And, Connected has won 2 favorite podcast awards, one away from Lifetime Achievement. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. Even though one of the hosts is on Upgrade, somehow that happened. Yeah. He recuses himself, sort of, but I like Connected. And Upgrade.
I hope
Upgrade
it's your
never gets
favorite
votes, by the way. People should vote for Upgrade as favorite podcast because you're listening to Upgrade right now. Come on, people. I always like it when Upgrade is third on the list of favorite podcasts. It's just like I've been seeing all of these Overcast shares of people's podcast listening, and the ones that make me laugh so many of them are like ATP and then maybe the talk show. And I'm like, is Upgrade in there? And like, Upgrade's in there. It's not up at the top for most of them, but it's like, it's in there. We appreciate that. I don't need to be number one here. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
ATP's got, home court advantage.
They really, really, that's when it's a podcast by the person who makes the podcast app. That is about as good as you can talk about your advantages. Apple would kill for that advantage.
Yeah. Vertical integration, I think is what they call it.
I think that might be it. This episode of Upgrade is brought to you by Delete Me. We've talked before about how much of your personal data could be out there on the internet for people to see, like Steven's middle initial, and how uncomfortable that can make you feel. Now, Mike tells me, this is Mike Hurley, remember him? He loves Delete Me. It gives him an extra layer of comfort for his online privacy. He knows that Delete Me is in his corner. They're making sure to take care of removing his data from the places he doesn't want it to be. He even set up a gift subscription of Delete Me for his wife recently. Oh, now give the gift of Delete Me. I love it. She is also equally excited to see how her reports turn out to give her more control of her data. That's right. It is a secondhand and third-hand endorsement of Delete Me by Mike and Adina. What more could you ask? Look, data brokers can make a profit off your data. Your data is a commodity. This is how huge portions of the economy are run. It's really gross, but it's true. People on the web can buy private details, which can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, harassment, unwanted spam calls, but you can protect your data by using Delete Me. Sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts will take it from there, because you don't know how to do this stuff, but they do. This is all they do. They will send you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they want removed. This isn't just a one-time service. They are always working for you, checking around on the internet and in databases here and there for you and your information, and removing it from all the places you don't want it to be. They do the hard work of wiping all that personal information from the places that the data brokers can get it and the bad people can get it. Take control of your data. Keep your private life private. Sign up for Delete Me, and there is a special discount. You knew there would be for our listeners and their loved ones, like Mike's wife, Adina. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/upgrade20 and use promo code upgrade20 at checkout. That's the only way to get 20% off. joindeleteme.com/upgrade20. I'm not going to spell upgrade. You can do that for yourself. Enter code upgrade20 at checkout. joindeleteme.com/upgrade20. Code upgrade20. Thank you to Delete Me for supporting Upgrade and Relay. It's rumor roundup time, Steven.
Yeehaw.
Yeah, there we go. You're in the spirit. You got a new horse.
I do.
It's a nice,
do I?
Nice little brown horse.
I got a mustache, so that counts for something.
That's right. You're basically a cowboy already.
That's right. Yes, that's true.
I am titanium. No.
Well, are you? That's
I'm
the
not.
question, Jason.
Oh, the iPhone 17. Might it be losing titanium?
It could be. So there's been this back and forth in the rumors, which are really my favorite, is like when rumor people are fighting each other. It's like in Anchorman, you know?
Sure.
And then Mark Gurman comes in with a trident, kills everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
There's it really went off the rails quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, the iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max, will they feature titanium, just like the 15 and 16 Pro line? And I think it's really interesting. I love the titanium. I think it obviously weighing less is good. I like that it's not as smudgy like the stainless steel was. But I just wonder, like, do people care about this? I don't think they do.
It's a good question. So I got a couple titanium thoughts here. Welcome to our new segment. I like to call it Titanium Thoughts.
Titanium thoughts.
I got a titanium phone. I treated myself to or not a titanium phone, titanium watch. So the more expensive watch, because I was like, you know what? Birthdays and anniversaries and stuff, and I buy like presents for Lauren, and sometimes it's jewelry, and I don't really wear jewelry to speak of, at least, you know, not at the level where I'm, you know, buy an earring, or, you know, buy earrings, buy a ring, buy a necklace. Like it's nice, but I'm not into that. And I thought, well, what is the equivalent? What could I ask for? And I thought, oh, you know, I'm going to treat myself to a nicer Apple Watch, and I got the black titanium Apple Watch. Now I have the Series 10, and it's the black aluminum Series 10. And Stephen, I could not tell the difference if you asked me between aluminum and titanium. It's all mental. I mean, it was really nice, but this one is really nice too. And
yeah,
and this is the thing about the iPhone. Like, I like the idea of a lighter frame. I like the idea of a lighter phone, lighter watch. All this, like, great. And maybe somebody out there can say, "Oh yes, but you don't understand. It was like the stainless steel was heavy is the problem. Not that
it was. Yeah,
aluminum and titanium are both pretty light. Stainless steel was very heavy. So if they go to aluminum instead of titanium, I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. I do think that Apple brilliantly used titanium for at least 2 years as a major differentiator on products that didn't change very much, right? I mean, like, I see all those ads. There's like the AT&T ad where the AT&T lady is like, it's the new iPhone with titanium. And
titanium.
I think, who cares, right? Like, but I think it was pretty effective as just, it's different, and doesn't it sound cool? And so,
yeah.
I mean, fine, but in some ways they were really saying not heavy like stainless. And so, you know, I don't know. What do you think?
I think the visual sort of material difference maybe makes more of a difference in other markets than the US, right? We talk about this a lot. When the phone changes shape or design, they'll have kind of a big year in China and some other markets because that's valued more highly than it is here, which I find really interesting. But I think, speaking about the American market, I agree with you. The weight, like, moving from stainless steel was the big change. And it is remarkable if you pick up a stainless steel phone. Like, it really does feel heavier. But most people, you know, slapping their phones in cases so that they never see those rails. They don't really care about the smudginess, maybe the way some of us do. And so, you know, I think if they were to go to aluminum on the Pro phones, like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, I think people it would be a cycle, right?
Yeah.
And then they would just still sell a bajillion phones.
Yeah, I think, especially if there are other design changes, they'll use those to sell them. And if it's aluminum, and they'll just say it's lighter. And I don't think there are going to be a lot of people who feel like, I'm so betrayed that there's no titanium, right? Like,
right.
I mean, there'll probably be like a handful of super titanium fans who are like, how dare you? I only buy things made of titanium. But otherwise, I think an aluminum frame is fine. I think it's funny because this is a style issue too, right? It's like Apple felt like aluminum was light, but, you know, kind of boring. And that the stainless, it was like, no, stainless, it's surgical stainless steel. It's beautiful and heavy and weighty. And that was like a selling point. And then they're like, it's too heavy. Titanium is better. And they put that on there. It's really, yeah, like you said, it's a cycle. It's fashion. It's, there's no one right answer. So they keep kind of moving around as they need to or as they feel they need to, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, I think people buy the Pro phones for the cameras, right? Like that's why people upgrade. Maybe the screen, but I think mostly the cameras. And as much as I like titanium and I really like this phone and the phone right before it, like it wouldn't be a big deal to me if they went to aluminum, and it would make the color czar conversation even more awkward, but that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like they can make colors on anything now, but certainly on aluminum, we know that they can, and they're good at it. And it's affordable and light, and it's a great material, right? So they should do whatever they need to do. I think it's interesting to wonder, what do the people who designed the iPhone and the materials used in it think about the style choices, right? Because like, if they had their druthers and they didn't care about selling titanium or stainless, would they always use aluminum? And were those directives sort of let's shake it up, or were they bottom up where they're like, we want to try titanium, and then the execs are like, yeah, let's do it. We can market that. I don't know. I would like to believe that it's the engineers sort of saying, why don't we try a different material? But I do wonder if it's actually them being kind of prodded by people to say, well, why don't we try this other thing? Why don't we try another material? Because, the fact is, it's not just a utilitarian block. It is a device that needs to be marketed, and it has a fashion element to it, and that's part of the design too. Is it the designers who say, let's do titanium this year, and the engineers are like, okay, we can do that? I don't know what the push and pull is there, and if the engineers had their druthers, they would just always use aluminum or whatever. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Well, and this year, notably, they are using aluminum inside the phone.
Yeah.
For that better heat dissipation. That was an issue with the 15 Pro. So yeah, it's super interesting. I'm sure there's always that tension between the people making the devices and the people selling the devices. It's also interesting that the Apple Watch, right? Stainless steel at the beginning was the nice material. Once they got rid of the gold, like we don't talk about that one. And then they moved to titanium, and now it's aluminum and titanium. And I think the steel is still available on the Hermes watch, but they've moved away from steel there. And I can tell you on the Apple Watch, it made a huge weight difference because I wore a stainless steel watch for years, and then went to the titanium whenever that was the series 6 or 7 or whatever.
7, yeah. Lauren had her first Apple Watch was stainless, and again, it was sort of me being nice, but then she went to the aluminum. It's like, oh, it's so much lighter. It was stainless was nice and all, but like the aluminum one is I think that's Apple's problem. Is that the truth is that on the Apple Watch, the aluminum is the best. It's just the best because it's so light.
I think the only little niggle I have with that is that the aluminum gets the ion glass and you get sapphire with the nicer metal, and the sapphire displays do hold up better.
Yeah, I agree, but they could, there's nothing stopping them from making aluminum on all the Apple Watch models with the nicer glass, right? Or the higher end model of aluminum comes with the nicer glass. They've decided to differentiate based on metal, but I guess what I'm saying is they could just all be aluminum and it probably would be fine, except the reason I bought a titanium Apple Watch is I wanted to treat myself and get something nicer. And it was nice, but aluminum is nice, and I'm not sure there's much difference in between them. At least for me, there isn't. So we'll see how my Series 10 holds up. It's doing great so far. I'm liking it. It's nice. I went like 3 years without an Apple Watch update, and so for me, it's so much thinner, and I can see how much thinner it is. Just it's not bulging above my wrist like the old sensor did. It's really nice, and and I got the black aluminum, so it's all shiny, and so the shininess matches the shininess of the glass, and it's a really good look. So I'm liking it. I got this watch in Memphis.
You did.
Good
you
memories.
Unboxed it on my couch.
I did. Good times. Good times.
It was good times.
All right. I wanted to talk. It was Thanksgiving last week, and what happens, I think, for a lot of our listeners and for us is when you visit with family, you also do troubleshooting for family.
Mm-hmm.
I have a troubleshooting story that I want to tell, and then I'm curious if you've got any too. My father-in-law sent me an email last week that was like, Jason, when you're down here, if you don't mind taking time away from your vacation, I have some technical questions for you. Of course I will help you with your thing. So Friday, I'm thinking, well, today's the day we're going to do the techno things. I'm literally sitting at the kitchen table. We just got there. I'm drinking some tea, and Elliot walks in and says, he's just gotten back. This is what it is. I'm drinking tea. He's just gotten back from a bike ride. He walks in. He's still got his like yellow bike jacket on, like visibility jacket. And I'm thinking, oh, he's going to, take off his stuff and maybe take a shower or do whatever he needs to do. And then maybe we'll do the troubleshooting. He immediately walks up to me and says, Jason, do you have time now to do the troubleshooting? I'm like, well, first off, you got to know my father-in-law. This is exactly like him, which is like, he's got a list in his head, and he waited on Thanksgiving. And he's like, I'm not going to ask him on Thanksgiving. We agreed we'd talk about it on Friday. But literally the first second he sees me on Friday, he's like, Jason,
let's go. Yeah.
So the three had three things, and I just want to say them because I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see, we set people up and then we walk away and then we're gone for a long time. And then you come back and you're like, what? It's that Community GIF where Troy brings the pizza in and everything's on fire. You're like,
exactly.
I was just here. What is happening?
Yeah. What did you do?
So one of these, I put them in our show notes. What do you think? The first one, what is my first item?
What's your first item?
Do you see it? I'll tell you what it is. You can guess. 2Password. Any idea?
2Password. Does that mean 2-factor?
No. Oh, if only it did. 2Password means that my father-in-law's complaint was, I used to be able to autofill passwords and click on open site in 1Password and it would autofill the password, and now it doesn't. Can you fix this? And what I discovered when I went to his applications folder is that his applications folder contained 1Password 7 and 1Password. They were both open in the dock. So 2 versions of 1Password were open simultaneously.
Okay.
And there were like 5 1Password.zip like backup files of the app in that folder too. And I'm like, whoa. This is too many 1Passwords. And he said something about like, yeah, but on I use he's using his 1Password cloud password on his Mac, but he's using his old Vault password on his iPhone. And he felt like I don't know what the rationale is here. So I deleted all the old 1Passwords, making sure that the whole Vault was synced in the cloud and all of that for the actual current version of 1Password. He handed me his phone. He had 2 versions of 1Password on his phone too. So we deleted 1Password 7. You opened up 1Password 8. I made sure autofill was on in all the places. His behavior is fascinating. I didn't understand this, but this is a thing you can do. He goes to secure sites by opening that site in 1Password and clicking open.
Right.
And then it opens the browser and autofills the password, which I find bizarre, but it's supported. It's a thing you can do in 1Password. So 2Password. He had too many 1Passwords. It's so much. And his password. Oh, the other thing. His password is incredibly detailed, as you might expect, because you don't want to steal the logins of a retired person. I mean, he's got his financial stuff and all that. I get it. So he's put it under a very difficult password. And we get to the phone, and I'm like, well, it won't be so bad on the phone. You won't have to peck it in on the software keyboard because you use Face ID. And he doesn't use Face ID. And I said, why don't you use Face ID? And he says, I don't want to do it. I like having a password. Okay. I mean, you're the one closer to the end of your life who is spending a minute typing in a very complicated password every time you want to open 1Password on your phone. It's your choice. I'm going to let that one go. Anyway, 2Passwords.
2Password.
He also said, I have this thing where when I'm clicking on menu items or things in the interface that it doesn't click. I said, well, what does it do? He says, well, it will bring up, usually it will bring up like a menu or something, but it doesn't click. I'm thinking, well, that's the alt click. That's control click or right click. And he's using an Apple mouse. And I investigated, and here's the best I can guess. I don't know this for certain, but here's the best I can guess. And this is this whole computer mystery solver thing that I think a lot of technical people have to do. And some of it is really intuition. It is that we've seen so many things. It's like my story about the guy at the Apple store who, when I was completely distraught about my Mac Studio, he was like, I think I know what this is. And within like 10 minutes, we had solved it because he'd seen it a million times and he could see the pattern. whereas I
Exactly.
couldn't see the pattern because it had not really happened to
Right.
me before. So I showed him the mouse setting where you can actually say, don't use the right side of the mouse as an alt click. But I asked him, and he does seem to use a right click from time to time. So in the end, much to my surprise, my solution to his mouse click problem was behavioral. I said, I think what's happening is, as you're using the mouse, slowly your hand is creeping to the right. And the mouse is getting a little tilted. And then when you click, you're clicking with your index finger or whatever that you think is going to be a left click, but you're actually over on the other side and it's a right click, or maybe it's right in the middle and it's not registering at all. And so when you have this thing again, look at your hand and maybe reposition, and maybe that will solve it. I don't know 100%, but I think that's what's going on. And I told him, if this continues to be a problem, turn off the right click in the mouse settings and just use control click when you need to bring up a menu. So we'll see what happens with that. But I was fascinated. I'm like, I think you're just holding it wrong, right? Like, that's literally what it is you're just not paying attention. And I'm not a mouse user, so I really don't know. But that's my best guess, is that his finger is just kind of going rightward until he's left clicking on the right side. I don't know.
Yeah, as Kyle points out in Discord, like, kudos that he's using a password manager at all. Like, he's already really ahead of the curve.
Yeah, he asked me about that at one point, and I said you should use 1Password. And one thing I will give my father-in-law great credit for is if I basically say, here's a thing and you have to pay for it, but it solves your problem, he's like, I've already bought it now, right? Like, he's instantly bought it. He has no fear of that. It's like, if I say this will solve your problem, he's like, great, where do I buy it? And he's been using it faithfully, like I said, apparently two at a time, but faithfully. So, also, I should say the dynamic in this house is hilarious because my mother-in-law has a MacBook Air and my father-in-law has an iMac. It's an Intel iMac. And on a desk, it's a beautiful desk. I think it's an uplift, like bamboo top. It's gorgeous. It's great. Long and it's got the printer on it. It's got a bunch of papers on it, but like, it's an iMac. So he's a desktop user. That's how he wants to use it. And she does not want to use a desktop at all. She wants to use a laptop. I think it's just an interesting split between them. Anyway, the last one is spam in his email.
Yeah. That one can be tricky.
So this one, what I found is that he was saying, I get these emails and I block the sender, but they keep sending me email. And I said, okay, there's a few things going on here. I said, first off, if it's truly spam, blocking the sender will do nothing because they will send from another randomized email address. So it will never. Right. Blocking sender is not the solution. You block a sender if it's like a person who's bad. So I said, first thing you got to do is you got to send it to junk. Send it to your junk mail. And Apple Mail junk filtering was on, but he wasn't training it. And he was still getting this stuff. So I said, okay, step one, send it to junk mail. Step two, if it feels like it's a legitimate mailing list that you just don't want to be on, Apple Mail puts a unsubscribe button at the top. Just click the unsubscribe button. He says, well, what if it's a spammer? I said, well, the worst thing that happens is that they see that you're alive and they send you more spam, but most spammers don't really do the unsubscribe thing. And I'm like, but like, if it's a company that you've had some dealing with in the past and never want to hear from again, just click unsubscribe. But otherwise, add them to junk. That trains the junk interface and your life will be better for it. So I just thought it was really interesting that he had decided block sender was the right way to deal with spammers. And it's not. And then he said, of course, but I still get them. What do I do when I'm on my iPhone? I'm like, well, here's the thing. Apple's decided that spam doesn't happen on the iPhone. So there's no junk mail interface at all.
Yeah.
And he's not using Gmail or iCloud Mail. He's using mail from his internet provider, Cox. So
okay, that's what I was going to ask.
I was going to say, like, you just can't. Sorry. Can't be done.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I use Gmail for everything, and I can just drag it in the junk folder, and then it learns. And I actually have, well, I don't even use Mail, I use MimeStream, but I don't have any like client side filtering. I just let it all happen at the server level.
I have Gmail and I have Sanebox, former sponsor.
Yep.
And so I use MimeStream, and they are doing all of that filtering for me, which is great, right? But if you are, and that also means that on my phone, it's also filtered. Even though I'm using Apple Mail on my phone, it doesn't matter because the spam filtering is happening regardless. And I will, most of my training that I do is that I get on all these garbage mailing lists, I think because I'm press and I'm circulating in some press list and or podcast. You get this, I'm sure. It's the hello podcast. I can make you a more successful podcast. Please get in touch. And those all go in the same black hole, and I never hear from these people.
Goodbye.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's a nightmare.
So, do you have any recent troubleshooting things going? Oh, I should mention you are in addition to being the co-host of Connected, co-host of Mac Power Users, and you have a troubleshooting episode coming up. Is that true?
We do. Sunday's episode will be about this. In hindsight, probably should have done it before Thanksgiving in America, but we missed that.
Still got it before the big holidays in December, so that's good, right? There's a lot of holidays in December, so there'll be a lot of family, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or anything else.
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to get people before the more extended, I would say. Thanksgiving is sometimes so fast. Like I was in Orange County, and I didn't get to see your MPU co-host David Sparks because I literally had no time. That was not sort of 2 days of intense family time, and then that was it. Christmas often is, you really do have that time, unless your father-in-law is such a go-getter that he's like, Jason, now let's do it. You may need to relax. So I think it's still good to have. This is a good time to do the troubleshooting episode.
Yeah. So Sunday we're talking about iCloud and iPhone storage space, backups, printing, bad Wi-Fi, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What I noticed over Thanksgiving, and really just kind of in general, is like I have family members who ask me about AI because they either have heard the buzzwords or they've seen the Apple commercials with Apple Intelligence, which, as we have all talked about, not a great ad because that stuff's not really out yet. And that I think is going to be something that a lot of people like us, Upgradians, we're going to face that in the holiday season of our aunt and uncles and whoever asking us about these things. And some people have some pretty wild ideas about what is possible or what's coming. And it could be difficult to have nuance in some of those conversations. Like when I sort of realized that this was happening was an extended family member who is kind of a tech bro. Like he works at he has a startup and he wears a vest and,
wow.
drives a Tesla.
Typical.
Asking, he was very excited about AI and wanted to know like what things I thought it would revolutionize. And my answer was like, I think for most people, like some of the writing tools may be interesting. And then my big thing is like, I don't think society is ready for anyone in the world to make AI generated images. And, Apple has sort of had a softball with it because their styles are very cartoony or very hand-drawn. You're not making photorealistic stuff with Apple's tools. I think that is them trying to avoid these issues while still having the feature. But like, you can go ask any number of things to make a lifelike image of anybody, and they're pretty good at this point. And I don't think we're ready for that. I don't think people are ready for that. And, he was like, no, but it's going to cure diseases or whatever. Like, yeah, that may also be true, but I'm more worried about my family members on Facebook seeing an image that's just not true, not accurate. And I've already seen it. Like I've seen it unfold already on social media. Oof. And I think we got to all be prepared to answer those questions.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, how do we talk to your kids about the birds and the bees? How do we talk to your uncle about AI features and that tech bro cousin in your family about AI? I mean, my stock line about AI all along has been it's overhyped and also could be huge, right? Like I think it's both, and I think we don't entirely know exactly what parts are going to be huge. And I think it's interesting to see the stories that suggest that they are running into problems building better models. And the hype train is so hard that it's actually really hard to tell whether that's the backlash speaking. Certainly, if you're in an AI company and you're running into problems, you would deny it, right? You would be like, no, I need my stock options. No, we're great. Our company is great. So it's actually kind of hard to tell, but it is possible that there's going to be a correction where people realize that right now we're in the what doesn't it do phase, where it's like AI is the solution to all of life's problems. And you know what? It's not. I think I can give you 100% guarantee that it's not. That all of the things that people claim AI can do will not be things AI can do. Some of them may, right? I think some of them will, but not all of them. And that's going to lead to some bumps where some companies that are driven by AI are going to be like, oh yeah, we can't do that. And they're going to, some of them are going to go out of business. They're going to spend a lot of money now, assuming there's going to be a big payoff, and they're going to discover that there isn't a big payoff, and there'll be a consolidation. I actually wonder if that will ultimately be a validation to Apple's, like Apple didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't their strategy to get behind on AI. They were caught flat-footed, but it may be a benefit to them because they may be late enough to the party that they can choose useful investments better than some companies have done. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it through that lens, but yeah, that could definitely be how it.
They may luck out, basically, that they're like, oh well, our model, our small models running on devices that don't cost us a lot in terms of these huge data centers, and we're focusing on summarization and writing tools and some automation, like user automation. I think is a potentially huge place where this stuff could be successful. That's why I'm excited about the app intents and the personal context and being able to, I love user automation, but even at the shortcuts level, it's way too complicated for people. And if people could say, hey, assistant, I'd like to do this thing, and have it know that you could grab from this app and take it here and transform it in this way and then put it into this app and all of that without you actually having to think like a programmer. I think that's awesome. But we'll see. I mean, Apple is behind on this stuff, but maybe they'll dodge a bullet. I don't know. Related to this, my spider sense went off while listening to Connected last week. I'm in the shower because I listen to podcasts in the shower and when I'm walking the dog. Don't be creepy. It's just how it is. I have two places that I can really reliably listen to podcasts when I'm not driving back and forth to LA, in which case, wow, we listen to a lot of podcasts. But for this, I'm listening Connected in the shower yesterday, and you're talking about your Apple Watch battery issues. And you say, well, I think it might be the fast charging. I think maybe, which I immediately thought it could be that. So to back up, you and your wife both simultaneously started having battery issues with your Apple Watches, which is deeply suspicious, right? That's like, it's got to be something that's happening on both devices. And all of the things we can isolate are, there was probably a software update at some point that hit both of your devices. All right. Okay. You changed the chargers. And although that doesn't seem like it would make any difference, and I don't think you're suggesting that maybe fast charging an Apple Watch battery just nukes it, right? And makes it worse.
Right, yeah.
But I do wonder if Apple's charging algorithm on the Apple Watch, its charging firmware, might handle charging from the fast charger different and might taper it at the top differently and might even display the battery status differently. And I wonder if it's one of those things where you're using the fast charger, it charges fast, but it doesn't charge as completely. And you end up with a little less battery. You think it's full, but it's not. I had that thought. But the thing that made me literally stick my hand out of the shower, pick up my phone, and send you a text from the shower, which I did, because I didn't want to forget it, because then the conversation's going to go on and I'm gonna miss it and I'm going to forget it. Was you changed your Wi-Fi and you went to two Wi-Fi, Ubiquiti Wi-Fi base stations. And it was, again, it's probably not it, but it was doing that pattern recognition thing that happens when you're a technology person and you're trying to troubleshoot, which was, is it possible that even though the Wi-Fi is perfectly fine for your laptops and your phones, if it's just weak enough in the places where you wear your watch that it has to ramp up the Wi-Fi power in order to get on your Wi-Fi network, or it doesn't see one of them and it sees the far away one and it's expending enough power that it's pulling more from your battery and it's invisible to you because you're still on the Wi-Fi. A little like how if you're in a bad cell reception area, your phone will get hot because it has to really crank up the power in order to get anything on the receiving end. So that was enough of an idea that you didn't mention that so sorry, I sent you a text from the shower. It happens.
Yeah, no, it was good. And some Connected listeners had also said hey, this happened
When you swapped out your Wi-Fi.
When you swapped from Eero to Unify. And it was not only that the battery life was bad, but also our watches would basically drop off the network. So they would be disconnected from our phones.
Yeah.
And I think that also was like cycling into the battery thing. Like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Sure.
My phone is gone. And I spent some time this weekend doing some looking around, some searching, and came across a couple of posts, none of them super recent, but people having similar issues with Unify. And so I made a couple of changes to the network. And honestly, Jason, some of them I don't understand. It's like, oh, change this sort of handoff to this other kind of handoff.
It's network voodoo. And I had a Ubiquiti router for a while. It's the only Ubiquiti product I've had. But it was one of those things where I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. I'll just check some boxes. But that's one of the things you can do is like, if I check this box, what happens? If I, it's a one level above, turn it off and back on again. By the way, I should mention my father-in-law. He did have another problem later in the day where he's like, Jason, I clicked open this email and it opened with a blank nothing. And I did Command Q. I was like, well, let's quit and relaunch mail. And I did Command Q and nothing happened. And I thought, let's restart your Mac. And then it all was fine after that. It's like you got to go through the steps. You got to go through tier 1 troubleshooting, which is, did you try to turn it off and back on again? And then get there. But like for networking, I mean, that's what you, even if you don't know anything, that's what you do is like, maybe DHCP leases should be longer. Maybe they should be shorter. Maybe this weird repeater thing should be on if it's off. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I changed a couple of settings and then last night came across a more recent thread that people were having issues with this if 6 gigahertz was turned on, because then like the phones on 6E, Wi-Fi 6E, which the Apple Watch doesn't support.
Oh,
and so I turned that off, and I'm still getting gigabit speed. Like 5 gigahertz will give you gigabit Wi-Fi speed, and so I'm not really losing any speed from going down. And then someone else also recommended forget the Wi-Fi network on your phone and like rejoin it, because I used the same SSID and password as I had before, because I don't want to run around and like rejoin a new Wi-Fi network to a bunch of devices. And so I've done all of those things, and so far it's been okay, but it's only been like 12 hours. So we'll see. I do think my wife's like small size Series 8, like, when a small watch gets down to 88% battery or whatever, like you start to feel it more than the Ultra.
For sure.
And so I think she may end up getting an upgrade anyways. But yeah, I need to continue to chip away at this. I'm pretty convinced that it's something with the Wi-Fi now.
Ooh, oh, what a validation for Shower Jason.
Yes, I think Shower Jason was right. And as we're thinking to people, and someone even emailed me with some suggestions, which is very kind. Thank you. I've emailed back and forth with somebody now about this for a little bit. So we'll see. We will see how this goes, and it's fixable, I'm sure.
I think maybe Mary's watch was probably right on the edge, right, where it was still getting it done, but just a little phantom battery drain is enough to make it suddenly, right? Because you hit the wall where it's like, well, if I can't wear it all day because I'm sitting at home in the evening and it's 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and it's telling me I'm at 10% and I'm going to die, that's when you notice, right? If it goes from being 30% when you go to bed to 20% when you go to bed, it doesn't matter. But when suddenly you start getting the alerts, and so it's just enough phantom battery drain somewhere in the process to tick her watch over into panic mode. But you could also get her a new watch. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I usually upgrade her every 3 years anyways. So it's about time. But we'll see. I'm hopeful that turning off 6 gigahertz is enough for now. And if you're listening and you have Unify stuff and you've had issues like this, please reach out because I would like to get this solved. I believe it's fixable. Like the fact that there's really not a lot online about it suggests that this is not a widespread thing. And I reached out to some friends with Unify stuff. They're like, no, we haven't seen this. And so I think it's probably something maybe unique to my setup, but we'll see. But this is like some of the fun stuff, right? Like, yeah, it's super annoying that my watch just disappears from my phone and my activity rings are empty for the day. Like, that's not great. But a little part of me I'm also having fun with it.
It's a mystery to be solved.
Because the kids are still being able to stream Netflix, right? It's not like it's broken my network. It's just like, it's really just affecting me and Mary. And like, she didn't even notice until Siri didn't work.
Right.
She's a big Siri on the watch person. But I feel like there's a fix out there.
What series watch does she have again?
She is on the Series 8, the little one.
So she doesn't have the Siri on the watch, right? At all.
Right. But I mean, just like hitting the button and talking to Siri, and it's really going through the phone.
So having gone from the, I think, 7 to the 10, because I think it's the 9 and the 10 that have the onboard Siri and the Ultras. She's going to love that upgrade, right? Because like that's the thing that I use it mostly for like reminders and timers and stuff. But man, having the model running on the device instead of having to go back to the phone. Yeah. It's so great. It's so great. It's much more responsive. I used to just get so frustrated with Siri on the watch because it would spin and spin and spin and spin and then say like, I give up. And now it never does that because the hardware is improved to the point where you can run that stuff on the device. It's great. So she'll love that.
I hadn't even thought about that, but that plus the battery may be enough for me to.
Feels good.
Maybe I can find a Cyber Monday deal.
Thanks, Unify.
Today. Thanks, Unify. Costing me even
bringing families together.
Even more money.
Yeah. This episode of Upgrade is brought to you by Smarter World. If you're into podcasts that delve into how tech shapes our lives, which, I mean, you're here, aren't you? This ad read is for you.
I am here, Jason.
Steven, let me tell you. Let's sit down here. I'm going to turn my cap around. Turn this chair around backward. We're going to wrap a little bit.
Tell me.
Let's start with a couple questions. How do you control a robotic arm with your voice?
Beats me.
Which technology allows cars to communicate in real time as they drive? What's inside the smart plug that reduces home fires and saves lives? If you're curious about the answers, you want to listen to the Smarter World podcast. They speak to some of the world's biggest brands and most exciting startups about how they're using technology to change the world around us. Host Kyle Fox recently spoke to Honeywell about how smart energy is changing the buildings we work in. My old building used to like leave the lights on all the time and leave the AC on half the time. And I thought, this is really bad, right? Like we need a better system. So this is cool. Applied EV shared how they're working to bring autonomous driving vehicles to delivery fleets and commercial vehicles. And another episode, Damon Motors explained how they're redefining the riding experience with their electric motorbike. Ooh, I have a friend who's into electric motorcycles. That's cool. The podcast features guests discussing technology topics from drones to software-defined vehicles to smart home innovations. They explore the stories behind the tech we use every day. You can listen to these conversations by searching for Smarter World wherever you listen to podcasts. That's the Smarter World podcast. Search for it now. Thank you to Smarter World for the support of Upgrade and all of Steven's podcast network. Steven, I wrote a thing that I say for you for this podcast, which is Indecision at the Intersection of the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini, which is my article where I get lots and lots and lots and lots of advice from people I know about what kind of computer I should buy, because I'm feeling the Mac Mini sweats, right? Like that Mac Mini Pro chip, so impressive. Do I want that? I have a Mac Studio M1 Max, which is really, really good. I ran benchmark tests against the Pro, and I was like, well, it's way faster at CPU, but actually, because it has so many fewer GPU cores than my M1, it's only like a 7% GPU boost, which is impressive going from a Max to a Pro. But like, if I'm going to get a new computer after 3 years, I want like a really impressive jump. And that was enough to get me off of the Mac Mini train, I think, even though it's so cute, because I thought it's not enough of a benefit for me, even though it's sorely tempting. But it's just like, okay, maybe I'll just wait and see. There'll probably be the high end of the Mac Mini and the low end of the Mac Studio usually cross over, and you get the Max chip in the Mac Studio. Even the base model is going to be way more impressive than the high-end Mac Mini, and presumably will blow my existing Mac Studio out of the water. And this was great until some of my friends, and I use that term somewhat pejoratively here, said, Jason, you have a laptop that you travel with sometimes. You have a desk in your garage, and you have a desk in the back of the house that you use a lot in the winter because it you don't want to heat your garage and it's a separate space heater. All of this is true. And they say, you should just get a MacBook Pro. You can get an M4 Max MacBook Pro today. You don't even need to wait for the Mac Studio. And the best part is, Macs are good at syncing data, but they're not great at syncing data. There's a lot of data that doesn't sync, that you're like, oh, suddenly this app, I think it was Hazel the other day, where it's like, oh, Hazel doesn't know what to do on this, and the Python version was different, and this thing wasn't installed.
Yeah.
When I went from one room to another, and my friends, again, so-called friends, were like, if you have a MacBook Pro, you literally carry your computer from room A to room B, and everything is the same because it's literally the same computer. And you know what you can also do then? When you go visit your mom in Phoenix, it's also the same because it's the same computer. And are you getting it yet? It's not 3 different computers in 3 different places. It's one computer.
It's one computer.
Move between places. And so I come to you also with this. I wanted to just share a link. There is an absolutely a bananas article on 9 to 5 Mac last week that was how I turned the M4 Mac Mini into a travel computer. It's hilarious. I really admire the moxie of the 9 to 5 Mac writer Fernando Silva, because it's like, I've got a backpack, I got a little portable display, I got a Mac Mini, I got a keyboard, and I can travel with my computer. And then at the end he's like, of course you could also buy a laptop. I'm like, you could do that. You could.
You know whose fault this story is? This travel M4 Mac Mini. We're going to get back to you in a second. But this travel M4 Mac Mini situation, it's Federico Vitici's fault, because he cut a MacBook Air in half and stuck an iPad on top of it. And suddenly everybody's like hacking their hardware. Like,
it was the original sin of this whole thing, was that.
It was. Sigmund is like got an Apple TV. Do you know, we talked about Connected, I think. He doesn't even have the screen anymore.
No, he threw it
away. So he
away.
just has half a MacBook Air in his drawer.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man? Back to you, though.
Thank you.
And I think last time I was on Upgrade, I also had some sort of, I was judging something. I forget.
It's you bring the Mac therapy
wisdom. Yeah.
Thank you.
So for years, I had a desktop Mac and a laptop. And so I did this, right? Like, I kind of have my desktop be my main computer, and then I took my notebook with me when I went to go work somewhere else. And I did the data juggling thing. And you're right. Documents, photos, calendar stuff, that's really easy to sync. It's all sort of the other stuff that we as nerds have a lot of extra stuff. That's where you're really kind of like rebuilding it on both systems.
Yeah. It's all the stuff that's in your library files, and that the apps have not, or the system have just not moved, which they have to engineer themselves, like move to a system where that stuff ends up living in a synced place. And
right.
So they all get out of sync. It happens.
Yep. It can actually be kind of frustrating. It's like, why isn't this thing working? Hazel's a great example of this for me, because I use Hazel, and it's like, why is this PDF still just sitting on my desktop? Why hasn't it moved? It's like, because I'm on a different computer. So
and Hazel has a sync system, but you have to turn it on and make sure you turn it on the right place and say, now this, and then go to the other computer and say, now use that and also do it here. And if you do that, it does work, but you have to do it.
Yeah, same with Alfred, which is my launcher of choice. And if Alfred's not the same on every computer I use, my brain doesn't work. But you have to go in and you put a folder on a Dropbox, and then it syncs it. And we all know how reliable that can be over time. But so that was my life for 7 or 8 years. My first 7 or 8 years being independent, I did this. And then with the M2 generation, I bought a pretty nice M2 Pro MacBook Pro and made the decision, I'm going to have one computer. And when I'm at my desk, it's hooked up to my studio display and my sound equipment and everything else. I use a Thunderbolt dock for that. But then I can just eject Time Machine. I can unplug a single cable, and my one computer goes with me. Now, there are downsides to that, right? The laptop's more expensive. If your car gets broken into and someone snatches your bag and your one computer was in it, that's a problem, right? Or if you spill iced tea into it, and And so I still have I have an M1 MacBook Air that's my beta machine in the summer, And that's sort of my escape hatch. Like if something happened to this laptop, I could still record a podcast by getting, some stuff installed on it. So, there's nothing saying you wouldn't have the redundancy or sort of the safety net of that. But I have really come to enjoy having just the one Mac with everything on it and my setup being the same everywhere. And I think in your case, where you are kind of bouncing back and forth between the garage and the bedroom, Studio B back there, I think there's real benefit to it. And I think the 14-inch M4 Max would smoke your studio.
Oh yeah.
And give you that. And I understand like you're a small laptop person, the 14-inch is a little bulky and I get that, but I think the benefits outweigh that, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm coming around. I'm still not there yet, right? Because I have been a MacBook Air person for so long. But the truth is, my MacBook Airness was very much based on the fact that I used to be a commuter and brought my laptop back and forth. Because you talk about, having your same computer everywhere. I did that. It was in my backpack. It was a MacBook Air on my back, so I wanted to be as light as possible. But I docked it at work and then used it at home. And it was great. And when I started this, I started with a Mac. I eventually bought that Retina iMac when it came out. But when I started doing this work from home thing, it was with a docked MacBook Air on a monitor, and it was great. So I'm open to it because my laptop, like I don't use the laptop around the house very much at all because I use the iPad. Around like on the couch and stuff, it's never the laptop. It's always the iPad for that stuff. And even in the backyard, most of the time I'm actually writing on the iPad with the keyboard. I'm not writing with the MacBook Air. So my MacBook Air use is really limited to the back of the house as the Studio B driver. And when I go visit my mom or do any other kind of like business travel where I need to record podcasts and stuff like that, because I'm not as far gone as Federico, who has completely forsaken the Mac. It's not going to be me. I'm not going to go that far.
For now, he'll be back. He always comes back.
He'll boomerang around. He bounces around. I love it. He's like he's just traveling the world and seeing the sights, and just like you can't pin him down. It's great. That's why we love him. So I am seriously considering it, which I kind of can't believe. The other thing is I write these articles, I write these reviews of these MacBook Pros, and I always go out of my way to talk about the display because it is the best display Apple has ever made. Period.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Hands down.
Period. It is spectacularly good. Bright colors. It's just incredible. And like having one of those when I travel, well, that would be nice. That would be really nice. And it's very rare that I'm using a laptop in cramped conditions where I am going to say, oh man, I really wish I had the MacBook Air instead of the MacBook Pro. It's not that much. I mean, it's not the 11-inch Air, right? That's the other thing is Apple is never going to make, I think, never going to make a Mac laptop smaller than the 13-inch Air. I don't think they're going to ever make I would love it if they made an 11-inch Sub Air or whatever, but I don't think they will. Yeah. And even if they did, I don't think I'd want it because it would probably be so compromised at that point. So I am coming around to the idea that maybe an M4, a 14-inch M4 Max MacBook Pro might be in my future, replacing all of my other Macs. And as for the fear of like being having a disaster where you have to send your computer in and you don't have access to a Mac for a while, I have my server. It's an M2 Mini. Like I can do my job on an M2 Mini. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
Right. If it comes to that, I will I'll move the server and the hard drive and all those things to one of my desks and just use it there, and it'll be fine. Right. I have no fear of that.
Yeah. Don't let Dan Moore near it with an iPhone. We know how that ends.
Wow.
Too soon.
I saw a picture. Dan. I was building some calendars last week.
Interesting.
Right. I've got the last page of the last Stephen Hackett calendar up on my wall right now.
Yeah.
We've reached December.
That's the James Thompson photo, right?
Yeah, of the icon garden. It's great, including the hand, which I'm imagining is you waving goodbye to calendars. But we do this every year. We take pictures for the year and then make those the calendar for the next year. And so I was going through all the pictures, and one of the pictures in there is me taking a selfie of my row at WWDC, and it's like, oh, there's Casey and there's David, and oh, there's Dan and his laptop just before the bad thing happened.
It's like the last known photo of somebody before they disappear.
Yeah. It's like, wait, little did Dan know that he would drop his iPhone right on his screen and destroy it mid keynote. Amazing.
It's a real bummer. I think the M4 Max 14-inch is the way to go. I mean, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it, at the end of the year, I think. And you can spec it up, where it really can be your one computer.
Yeah, I know you got to get all your files on there, right? You got to get the entirety of Relay on that drive. So you got to get the big drive.
I tell you what, once you buy one laptop with 8 terabytes, you can't go back.
This is the thing with my Mac Studio is I used to have an iMac with a 1 terabyte drive, and I got the Mac Studio with 2 terabytes. And this could be like a little Maxim. We could come up with a way to like make this a thing people refer to in the future. But it's like basically once you go to a higher storage tier, you can't go back, right? You just can't. I'm never going to go back to 1 terabyte again because I'm now at 2 terabytes and everything is expanded to fill the space. I'm never going back.
Exactly. It's like the mythical man month, but for files.
But for SSDs, yep. Mm-hmm.
That sounds right.
The subliminal storage doctrine.
There is some sort of thing about that. Like work will take the allotted time, take up all the allotted time.
Expand to fill the space. Yeah.
That does happen with storage. But yeah, I think it's the way to go. And yeah, it's a bit more weight, when you're flying to see your mom or when you're going somewhere, but it's not that big. And I think one thing about the screen that is I think the MacBook Pro is the way to go for the power. But, for me, I'm sitting in front of a studio display almost all the time. Now, the laptop's open to the left. But again, I'm not getting the benefit of that screen most of the time. And that's kind of a bummer, but the power is what I'm after and the capacity is what I'm after. And the screen's kind of a bonus. And when I do use it just as a laptop, it's incredible, So if you're going to use it in clamshell mode or something, you don't get that benefit all the time. But when you really need it, that's when it'll be there for you.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, thank you for the sage advice. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I will say, because I think I heard you say this, like clamshell mode works great with Apple Silicon Macs. It's so much better than it used to be. I used it for a while in the Intel days, and it was just like...
It was really bad then.
Really bad. Yeah. And like Apple fixed that with Apple Silicon. So if you're out there and you're like, oh, I wish I could use clamshell mode and maybe I'm on a small desk and the laptop's just in the way. Like, it's really good now.
It is. I use it, like I said, I use it in the back of the house. And I mean, and as a veteran of somebody who would frequently pull my laptop out of my backpack when I got home to find that it was blazing hot because although it had been closed and gone to sleep, it decided it wouldn't sleep. That was the Intel Mac laptop experience in a nutshell.
It really was.
It's not like that now. It's not like that at all.
Yeah. I think someone, when they did Apple Silicon, they're like, hey, look, this has been a problem. Let's fix it now.
Most of our desktop users are using laptops attached to a monitor, probably, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, what percentage of people who use laptops ever attach it to a monitor? But I wonder if that number is larger than the number of people who are using a desktop Mac attached to a monitor. I really, maybe the same, maybe more. I don't know. But I have a random Mac complaint to share with you.
Okay.
Just before we take our last break, I wanted to share this with you. I had this flash, which was, I use LaunchBar, and I have a ChatGPT account, and I use ChatGPT some, and I was actually hearing you guys talk about, Mike uses ChatGPT for search a lot, and I thought, how could I use it occasionally, and I find it interesting. I don't find the results great, but I find it okay, and interesting, and sometimes useful. Sometimes really bad, but sometimes useful. And I thought, what I really want to do is use it from inside LaunchBar, right? What I really want to do is say, do my LaunchBar shortcut and then do a GPT shortcut and then type a query and then get the response. But and I could do that on the web. I could build that for the web. But what I really want to do is use the ChatGPT Mac app, because it's nice that it's a Mac app that is not stuck in a web browser, and I can open it and I can see my whole history, and it feels better. But the problem is it's basically a web wrapper, and it doesn't have, as far as I can tell, any connectivity to other Mac things. And it's frustrating. Like, I want it to be like a URL scheme, right? Something where I can just pass a URL to the ChatGPT app, that says do this query and open it. It'll open. I don't even need it to come back to launch bar. I just want it to like open in the ChatGPT app and have done the query.
Right, just pass it through, and then then the app open, or you tab over to it or something, and it's ready for you.
And it's ready, right? I want to eliminate a step here because I have launch bar in my muscle memory, and GPT will bind to a shortcut, but I don't really want that because I don't use it enough for that. But I would like to sort of like bind it to launch bar and have launch bar pass it to ChatGPT. But the app is bad, and I actually asked ChatGPT how to do this. And it generated, first off, it told me to go someplace in launch bar that doesn't exist. It's like, go to the this tab and then press the new automation button. And it's like, that doesn't exist. Okay, great. And then it wrote an Apple script for me. And I know this has happened a few times where I've seen it, that ChatGPT is actually pretty good at writing AppleScript because there's so much AppleScript documentation and examples out there on the internet. And I know that they're old, but there's so much of it. It's actually a great way to do AppleScript, is just because nobody needs to learn AppleScript today, right? You should never learn it if you don't know it. But there's stuff AppleScript can do that nothing else can do on the Mac, and ChatGPT will write it for you. So you can do it that way. Be careful, be careful, because it could decide to kill all humans and write an AppleScript that's like bad, but generally it works really well. So its AppleScript is super hacky though, because it knows that it can't control the ChatGPT app. So it basically says, take the query from LaunchBar and switch to ChatGPT and type it in. It's like, well, I could use Keyboard Maestro at that point, right? Like that is not the point here. And I may end up using Keyboard Maestro to do this. I don't know. Yeah. But my plea to ChatGPT and everybody over there is, put a URL scheme in your Mac app and document it. Because that's all I really need, is I need a way to say ChatGPT : / search and topic equals, right? Like that's all I need, is document a URL scheme. I don't need an AppleScript dictionary or anything like that. Let's not even go there, but just something where I can pass that through, because that would be nice.
Yeah, I have the Mac app installed. It's not great. It runs in the menu bar and the dock, and it's one of those where you can like hide the dock app, but that doesn't really work the way that I expect it to, in a way that I can't quite put my finger on even. Like, it's just kind of weird. I do have it bound to a keyboard shortcut. I'm doing Option space, and I have it. So the default positions are bottom, left, center, and right. It's like, no, I want it in the top right. Like, that's kind of in my brain where it should be. And I can drag the window up there and set it to open the last position, but it doesn't really remember. Like, it's kind of a weird app. I'm not actually sure. I was trying to dig around as I was talking, if it's native or if it's Electron, but it's got some weirdness to it.
Yeah, I think it's just a web wrapper. And look, I am very glad that there's a Mac app. I love that they said, you know what? ChatGPT is so useful, we want to integrate it into desktop computers. And they did the Mac version, and now they have a Windows version too. Like, I like that about it, because if you are a believer in ChatGPT, and ChatGPT people should be, right, that it's their product, then you should believe that integrating it with the desktop computers is one of the things that you should do. So I'm grateful that it's there. Because like I said, I could open this up in a web browser, but I'd rather not. I just wish that it was a little more integrated. And like, the bare minimum to me is accept a URL that's passed from elsewhere in the system. Because then you can put it on a Stream Deck button, you can Keyboard Maestro it, you can AppleScript it, you can use it in Launch Bar. Like, it opens up the entire platform to just pass things to ChatGPT. If they want to do more, great. If they want to return, the result back to some other app, fine. But like, it's not necessary. I just would like a little bit. And I realized I could probably build like an API thing that uses the API, like how Federico did with one of his shortcuts. Like, I could probably do that, where I built a whole thing that passes the query to the ChatGPT API and gets the results back and displays it. Again, it's kind of too much. I'd rather not. All I really want to do is pass the query on to where it should live, which is in the Mac app, and it doesn't do that. But I don't know how you're using it. I pay for it because I want to explore it, and I think that it's good. Like I said, sometimes, other than for computer programming, where honestly it's great because it knows way more than I do about it, and it gets me code that is usable or at least fixable. And some of the search is good, some of it is bad. Like, it's not perfect, but I don't want to make perfect the enemy of the good. It is often very good, and I like to explore with it. How, are you using it? I mean, you're paying for it, so I hope you're using it.
Yeah, it's I'm using it really with search. And to close the loop a second ago, it looks like it's built in Swift actually, and
Well, then,
but it's just a wrapper.
Let's get on it. Like something. A shortcuts support would work. URL scheme would work. Just let us automate it a little bit, please.
They use revenue cats in here. That's cool. So when search came about, that's like, I'm going to give this a real shot. Mike's spoken really highly about it. Other people have spoken highly about the search. And I've been using it in some show prep and some other stuff, right? Like, again, just trying to find things. It's not doing my work for me. And of course you want to always check its sources. And that is one nice thing in the search. It like puts the sources just right in line. You can click on them and see what they're saying. And that is really actually pretty compelling. I think the search is good. I think there are clearly still places where you bump into sort of limitations of their data sets, or kind of sometimes you have to think the way that it wants you to think. I'm trying to remember. I was trying to scroll through my history and I can't find the example now, but there was something that I tried searching for and I had to like tweak it, and then it kind of ended up going down the road I wanted it to. But it is definitely not something that is like baked into my workflows at this point. It's still very much experimental.
That's sort of why I want to integrate it with LaunchBar to see if maybe there's a way for me to do that. Like, I built a LaunchBar thing that actually uses a shortcut, but it's 6-color search. So I can do command space 6, SIX space, and it gives me an text entry, and I can type something, and it runs that in the 6-color search shortcut that I built, which uses the WordPress search API and searches my WordPress install and passes back results that the shortcut displays. And when I click on one, it puts the URL on the clipboard so that I can link to my stuff while I'm writing. And it's like, it's not super smooth, but it's smoother than going to the web browser, opening a browser window, typing in a query, site:6colors.com. Like, it's a little bit better. And I like that. So that was my thought, is like, if I can add another feature into LaunchBar that is ChatGPT integration, then it will let my impulse to do command space for everything flow some of that stuff that direction. And I'm with you about search. Like, again, none of this is perfect, but I don't know. As a content creator on the internet, I don't mind the idea that if somebody asks for a question about Apple stuff, that there's a summary, and then there are a bunch of footnotes that say you can read more about this at this place. Read at The Verge and at Daring Fireball and at 512 Pixels and at 6colors. Like, I'm okay with that. If the best practice for this is going to be show your work so that you can trust these sources, we're just summarizing these sources, but you need to get more information, because some percentage of people are never going to go past that. But a lot of people are going to be like, I don't trust this thing. This is not enough. I want to read the details. I'm okay with that. That's okay with me. Hiding that stuff is what bothers me. So I love that the ChatGPT search shows its sources, right? Like, that is, because it also lets you look at a source and go, come on, I don't trust that source. And that's good too. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that way, it's not that different than a Google search, right? Like, you search something on Google, it's like, okay, I've come across this website before. Like, I don't need to read it or go down that road. And if anything, it's definitely like, I'm definitely on the side of the argument now of like, oh, Google is in trouble. Like, they need to figure this out. And, I think most people now, or everybody's getting like the AI results at the top of their searches. And in my sort of like, kind of limited testing, what ChatGPT does with its search is more compelling than what Gemini is doing. And I think more useful. And that is pretty interesting.
Bad for Google. Real
and
bad for Google. That's why Google's so spooked by this, right? Right. That's why, is because they can see that this could completely overthrow them if they can't do it right. If somebody else becomes the way you find things on the internet. If it's not, I mean, they're doing a thing like the Apple thing, which is if our bread and butter is going to be replaced, we have to be the one to replace it. And that's why Apple spent lots of money on all sorts of things like the Vision Pro, because they're like, what could be the next thing that replaces the iPhone? And let us be one of the players in that. Otherwise, our business is gone. And Google, I think the AI stuff is absolutely 100% that, which is this could be an existential threat to Google. And so like if AI is going to replace Google search, we need to be the AI search. And right now they're not, but they're trying real hard. And that's why.
Well, I'm curious to see how your usage unfolds. And, for me, like I looked at it a little bit, like, can I pipe this through Alfred? And I was like, you know what? The option space is fine. Like and like the app pops up quickly. And the one thing I appreciate about it is when you use the keyboard shortcut, it opens and it moves the cursor into the text box, which is not a given. Not all apps do that correctly. And so it's one keyboard shortcut and then I'm typing pretty quickly. And that gets me close enough, but I understand wanting to get it a little bit, closer to the metal, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll see. This episode of Upgrade is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is a bit like driving without car insurance. Why would you do it? When you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, and the rest, your online data isn't secure. Someone on the same network could gain access to your personal data, including passwords, bank logins, credit card details, and other things you wouldn't want in someone else's hands. ExpressVPN works by stopping hackers from stealing your data through using a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. So anybody who's on that network, it's just encrypted garbage. They don't see anything. There are lots of reasons to choose ExpressVPN over other VPNs. It's super secure. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption, and hackers aren't that patient. It's easy to use too. Just fire up the app and click one button to get protected, and it works on all your devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. And it's been rated #1 by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. Now, Mike Hurley is dropping in from his assignment. He wants me to tell you that he will be using ExpressVPN on his assignment, which is a vacation right now, to catch up on the shows he was streaming at home and to watch his live sports seamlessly with no buffering. That's right. He's in a different country, but is going to get access to all of the stuff back home in the UK through ExpressVPN. I did this when I went to New Zealand. Same thing. It's like I wanted to watch Max. It's not in New Zealand, or if it is, it doesn't have anything on it. I just used ExpressVPN. It was great. Right now, you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday / Cyber Monday offer. Oh, it's Cyber Monday as we record this.
Cyber Monday.
Happy Cyber Monday to all of you who celebrate cybers. Anyway, you can get the absolute best VPN deal you'll find all year. Use the special link, expressvpn.com/upgrade, to get 4 extra months with the 12-month plan or 6 extra months with the 24-month plan, totally free. Big extension, just added right on. Boom, it's done. expressvpn.com/upgrade, an extra 4 or 6 months of ExpressVPN for free, so you can be wherever you want and watch whatever you want and be secure and safe. Thank you to ExpressVPN for supporting Upgrade and Relay. Oh, is there breaking news?
There is.
Oh, breaking news. Yes.
Apple worked on the Vision Pro since at least 2008.
Okay.
What does it mean?
So, old news. Here's the story. Harry McCracken, who used to be the editor-in-chief of PC World, he was my counterpart at PC World. He was posting about finding his old blog that has disappeared from PC World's website in one of the very many kind of CMS changes that have happened over time there, using the Wayback Machine from the Internet Archive. And it totally worked, and he found it. And I thought, well, let's see if I can find our old blogs from that same period, because we, at Macworld, we underwent that same issue. And I found the Mac User blog, which is where Dan Morin did most of his writing for a period of time when we were doing, like, it was literally a movable type blog. Of course it was.
Of course it was.
Back in the day. And one of the things that, and Dan went poking around in his columns, and he found something, and he wrote about it in his Macworld column So there's a 9 to 5 Mac story that literally is, hey, look at what Dan wrote about on Macworld, which is very strange. But we found this, we have this for podcasts too, where we say things on podcasts and they're like, hey, look at this thing that Mike heard on Upgrade. And there's a whole story about it. Look, the content, filling the content void is a real thing.
I mean, we do it on like 512 and 6 colors. It is a little bit weird to see it on 9 to 5, I think is what you're saying.
I feel like we write links where we say, hey, you should check out this article but 9 to 5 will often just be like, well, we're just writing an article about news that broke, and it's just our dumb podcast. It just is weird. So this is a post from a Mac user contributor from 2008 that is headlined, "Patent Filing Suggests Apple, quote, iPod, EYEPOD," from November 7, 2008. And it's a patent, and it's linking to somebody's patent website, probably, maybe Patently Apple or something like that. Maybe it's a USPTO site. I don't know what the link is because this is just a screenshot Dan took. But the drawing of it, it's like the Vision Pro. I mean, it's the Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild. So it's old news, and it came a long way. But at some point in 2008, somebody at Apple was like, "Hey, I have a patent on mounting displays in a thing that you wear on your face," and one of the people credited is Tony Fadell, actually, the guy who created the iPod.
Yeah. Wow. Look at this thing.
Years in the making. The Vision
Years
Pro.
in the making.
Yeah.
To put 2008 into some context for people, that's the year the MacBook Pro went unibody for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the year the MacBook Air was introduced. I mean, it's a long time ago.
It's the year the App Store happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild.
Yeah. Anyway, just some fun old news, but I love that. And I love that the chain of events was Harry to me, to Dan, to Macworld, to 9 to 5 Mac.
The internet's a wonderful place.
All right. Should we do some Ask Upgrade?
Let's do it.
Oh, double lasers. It's great.
That's right.
Stephen, what's this first Ask Upgrade question? What's going on here?
This is from somebody named Casey List. That name sounds made up. Casey wrote, "You've discussed that you don't typically use MagSafe while traveling and often do some sort of arithmetic to figure out if it'll be necessary. I couldn't agree more. I'm in the same boat. Would you trade the MagSafe connector for another USB-C port or slightly different take? Would you be sad if MagSafe went away again?" Casey says they don't think they would make the trade, even though Casey seems to use USB-C and not MagSafe. I'm a little confused by Casey's opinion, but what do you think?
I would be sad if it went away, because I think having the option of having a dedicated power plug that isn't first off, let's just say, I think it's unlikely that Apple would remove MagSafe and replace it with another port. I think they would do what they've done before, which is just remove it and tell you to use your other ports for it. And the beauty of this is it can't be anything but power. And that means that if you're full up, you can use it. I love having a dedicated power spot, and the magnetic thing is big, right? Like, there are lots of people who rely on, and when it was gone, were buying like weird third-party things in order to get that breakaway thing where it's not going to pull your laptop off a table while it's charging because it'll pop off. And I think it's really good, and I want it to continue. And I do, like I said last week, I do travel with it some, right? But it's not required. And if I'm trying to travel really light, but still bring the laptop, I might not use it, but sometimes I do travel with it. And I'll tell you this, the way Lauren uses her MacBook Air, and she's using the M1 right now, the moment that she gets, maybe when I buy that MacBook Pro, my hand-me-down M2 MacBook Air, she will use that MagSafe cable a lot, because I know we've got USB-C chargers around the house, and we use them for iPads and stuff too, but her laptop doesn't really have a home. Sometimes it's on the couch, sometimes it's on a table. But back when she had a MagSafe laptop, it was great because you could just lay it somewhere and know that it would charge, but also not get yanked and pull the laptop somewhere. And
Right.
I feel like we'll go back to that when she goes to the M2, and that will be an upgrade. So I love it. I mean, USB-C charging is so great that they could kill it and it would be okay. But I think that the real challenge is trading a port for MagSafe would be like, that would be okay. But I don't think Apple, I feel like Apple's just never going to do that. Like the whole point of MagSafe being on the laptop is we want to maximize your data ports because you actually need to use data ports.
And MagSafe on the Mac, there is some nuance here. So like if you want to fast charge the 16-inch, that requires the 140 watt Apple charger.
Yeah.
And USB-C power delivery won't go that fast on the MacBook Pro. And so there are some cases where MagSafe would be faster. I really like MagSafe. I'm glad that it's back. Now, at my desk, I'm using a Thunderbolt dock, so I just have one cable going to my MacBook Pro. But in my bag, I have the MagSafe adapter. I like it a lot, and it totally works for me. I would be sad if it went away again.
Something you said there really struck me, which is, here's the thing about USB charging. I don't trust it. Like I've got USB-C adapters that have got like the good port and the bad port. And like, but if you're just on the other end, you don't know if it's plugged into the good port or the bad port. Maybe you could check, but like we've got one that's on behind our couch and then the cable snakes over the couch. So like I would have to get up and go behind the couch and look and see whether it's plugged into the good port or not. You're not going to do that. You're just going to plug it in. MagSafe, I know it matters what adapter is plugged into the MagSafe, but I would say that in general, I know what I'm getting from MagSafe, and USB-C, I don't really know. I mean, some of those adapters are weird, and I know you're plugging into USB-C on the other end, right? But so it could still be an issue, but I feel more like this is a dedicated power plug that's going to do what I trust. I don't know. Maybe that's an illusion since they're all coming from USB-C sources anyway, but I feel like having it be dedicated is a good thing. Maybe, and I think magnetic decoupling is good. Like it's really good that it's safe, that it lets you pop that thing off whenever there's any tension instead of pulling your laptop onto the floor. It's good. And making the cable, release without the cable undergoing tension that makes your cable bad. It's all good.
A question from Steven in Memphis.
Interesting.
Jason, do you keep the boxes of your Apple products current or past?
That's a good question. I think this maybe came up because over the holiday, I was in my in-laws' garage and discovered a G5 iMac box that was empty.
That's exactly what I thought of.
And I'm like, what is this even doing here? And it's like I like shook it and I was like, this is really light. There's no Mac in here now. Because they got rid of it, but they kept the box, which they probably don't need to have a box for a computer they don't have anymore and haven't had for many years. They also visible in their stack of boxes high up in the rafters of their garage was their Intel iMac box for the one that I was troubleshooting. So they save all these. My answer is mostly no. I don't live in a house with a lot of storage, and so keeping a big box around is not ideal. I think I do have like at least one of my studio display boxes, and it's huge, but I think I might still have that. I keep some of them, like I have the Vision Pro box, but again, it's a first generation Apple product. I feel like I'm going to hold on to that box because I'm going to hold on to that product forever. But in general, no, I have so many products going in and out. I have to hold on to all the boxes of all the Apple owners, right? So that's already taking up a lot of space because I've got the box they came in, the air bill to ship them back, and the boxes for all of those products. And that takes up a lot of space on my shelves in my garage already. And I just don't have a lot of storage. Even using the garage as storage like we do, I don't have a lot of storage for boxes. Yeah. So generally, no is the answer. Other than that, I will try to keep it around for a while in case it's a product that's currently in use and it might go to somebody else. But I don't do a lot of reselling of products either because this is my job. And so I tend to keep old products around, whereas I know you sell them and then buy them back 15 years later.
That's right.
You can find that sweet spot where they're not so rare as to be valuable, but are also outmoded and you buy them right then. That's the trick.
Yeah. before I talk about my box usage, it's a little too late because people have already sent y'all email probably, but in this support document, maybe Jason can put in the show notes, the 2023, so was that the M3 Mac 16-inch MacBook Pro, apparently can fast charge if you have a 140 watt USB-C power adapter and the 240 watt USB-C charge cable, 2 meter for MacBook Pro,
special cable.
And so it, yes, I guess there are some specific cases one case,
but this is
that
what
it
I
can.
mean. This is exactly what I mean about MagSafe, which is the two options for that fast charging on the 16-inch MacBook Pro are the 140 watt power adapter with a special USB-C cable or the MagSafe cable, right? Like, again, it's like you might, if you get the wrong cable, you're not going to get your full charge, but the MagSafe cable is going to get you your full charge. And that's a reason to use MagSafe for charging because you can rely on it. It's like, that's what it's for. That's all it's for. Use it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think our greater point still stands.
All right. And I will say, I do try to keep vintage boxes. So like I've got the original iPod box around here somewhere. I mean, I've tried to keep some of that stuff, but I can't keep all of it. So a lot of that stuff just goes away.
Yeah. I keep boxes for current stuff up in the attic. I actually have like a big duffel bag that has like current, laptop, iPad, iPhone boxes in it. And that's really about it. Even though I've got a Mac collection, I really don't collect like the boxes or the packaging. There's some stuff that I wish I had. Like I wish I'd had, an old iPod box or some of the stuff is really interesting, but it's never really like stuck for me from a collection standpoint. So I really don't have a lot. And once I sell something, the box goes with it. So, or like it, gets passed along to a family member or something. I'm like, here's your new old phone and here's the box it came in.
Yeah, that is ideal, is if you've got the box that it came in. But yeah, I save more than I used to. I'll put it that way. I used to not at all because there was no room. That was back when this garage was a garage. And there was some storage in it, but now we've got there's a big set of metal shelves that we've got that from like Home Depot, and it's got a bunch of stuff on it. And then I've got a couple other racks of stuff, including old computers and stuff. So we've got a little more storage, but still it's not enough. So, there's a limit to what you can do. I have friends, and you probably know this. You probably know people who do this. Dan Frakes, my old colleague at Macworld. Dan Frakes is an inveterate seller of his old hardware. So he keeps all the boxes and everything in them pristine because he'll use like a computer for a year and then he'll sell it. Usually he'll sell it on, I don't even know where, Craigslist, eBay. I don't even know what he does, but this was always his method. And so he would sell it in box with all the stuff, freshly wiped, all of that. And I always admired it, but I also thought I ain't doing that, right? It's just, there's no way I'm gonna, and I didn't have the room to do that either. But I always did admire that he always kept every box perfectly pristine, and then, which I do with my Apple loaners, but for a computer I'm going to use for, especially once I started handing them down to other members of the family, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. David asks, I was curious, since Jason has both an Oculus and a Vision Pro, how are movies on the two? I'm interested in watching, quote, big screen movies, and a $299 Oculus sounds interesting. I did the trial at the Apple Store for the Vision Pro, and it was great, but currently too expensive.
So I did convert a bunch of 3D DVDs, 3D Blu-rays to using just really I had to use a Windows, I think was it Windows or DOS? I don't know. A really bad software.
It wasn't DOS. I'm sure it wasn't DOS.
But it was kind of command liney. Anyway, really bad Windows software in order to do this, but I did manage to do it. So I could watch those on the Oculus before I had the Vision Pro because I was like, oh, 3D content, this is cool. And it's okay. There's a good app that puts you in a movie theater that looks really good. It's got dynamic lighting on the seats and stuff. So when it's a bright scene, the seats light up, and when it's dark, they don't. I mean, it's really, really very good. It's called Skybox. It's fine. The Vision Pro is better. The Vision Pro is really nice, but the Vision Pro also costs $3,500. So, I mean, that's kind of my answer is if you're curious about watching movies on a big screen in VR, the Oculus will do it. What I would say is it's not, I don't think it's good enough to watch any, like if you've got a nice TV, you should watch it on the TV. But the 3D stuff was great, and you can't watch that in 3D anywhere else other than a headset at this point. Now, I don't know. Last time because of the Vision Pro now, I am not going to do that because I have a Vision Pro. But like, I hope they've got a store now somewhere where you can buy or rent 3D stuff in Meta's ecosystem, because they really should. That was my complaint back before Vision Pro, was that they really should like let me watch 3D stuff and rent movies and buy movies in 3D, and they didn't. So if they've got that would be great. But and also, yes, the Quest 3 has a better screen than the Quest 3S. So, you go up a little bit, you're going to get a better screen. But I also had the Quest 2, which has the same screen as the 3S. And it was fine. Like, it was fine. But really, it was fine for 3D content that I couldn't watch anywhere else. Anything else I would rather watch on TV. With Vision Pro, like, sometimes there is kind of like, I'm going to watch this on Vision Pro as a treat, because it is of a high enough quality that it's kind of nice to have that big screen when I'm watching a movie by myself, which doesn't happen. I was saying Moana 2 opened this weekend, and I thought I've watched half of Moana, the original, because I never saw it, and I started watching it in 3D on the Vision Pro, and then I got distracted by something, and I haven't watched the rest of it. But like that was a good example where, again, it's a 3D movie, it's in Disney Plus, it looks great on the Vision Pro. So my answer is, see if somebody is selling those movies or letting you rent them on Oculus. Gotta be, right? Somebody's got to be doing that now. Yeah. And then, it's fine, but I wouldn't personally choose it over my TV for 2D content. But for 3D, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think the entertainment is a huge use case, right? And that does put the Vision Pro at a slight disadvantage just due to the price. Yeah.
Even it looks good, but it doesn't look 10 times as good, right? That's
right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And lastly, RM wrote in, has Jason seen this? Page turn buttons are not totally dead. Can you describe this product that RM linked to? Because I've looked at this webpage a lot over the last couple of days, and I'm still
just thinking about the Roman Empire. Yeah.
Just gobsmacked.
Okay. So my initial description, let me know how I do here, is this looks like something Federico would buy.
Yeah, I think so.
It is the Soul Reader. It is a pair of glasses that contain an e-reader inside them.
Yes.
They're glasses that are completely covered in the front. So when you put these on, you can't see anything but a book. So yeah. Yeah, it's basically like, what if a Kindle on your face?
Mm-hmm. What if a Kindle was on your face, Jason?
Distraction-free reading. So, I mean, I admire the idea, and I'm sure there's a use case. I'm sure there's somebody who is trying to read in bed and doesn't want to bother their partner, and this is great. You just put on the glasses. This is like Federico playing video games, right? So you put on the glasses and you can read all you like, and it's not a problem. Although it doesn't look like it's really great resolution. But anyway.
No, it doesn't.
It looks real blocky. So, look, one of the things I love, and this is all when I was reviewing all the weird Android devices like those books, e-readers, like I love the fact that we live in an era where there's off-the-shelf mobile operating system stuff and there's off-the-shelf parts that some manufacturer in China can just sort of like put it in a blender and come out with whatever and say, is this a thing? And you know what? 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, it's not a thing. But every so often, it's a thing. Or it's a thing for a very narrow audience. Like the Books e-readers, that Books Palma is a great example. I know you forgot that you had yours.
I did, yeah.
It's a great example of a product that a big mainstream company is never going to make, but that a small company can take phone parts and an e-ink screen and kind of like put it together and make something that will appeal to a narrow audience that is big enough for them, but would never be big enough for Amazon, right? Or Kobo or whatever. I love that. I love that we live in an era where there can be small companies that can leverage the existence of Android and the existence of apps for Android and can do and the existence of parts for these devices that are used by, they're commodities at this point, and build products out of them that will target a very specific niche. And like I said, most of them aren't a thing. And I suspect that maybe the Soul Reader is not a thing. But if it is, if it can find enough of a following for it to be viable, then great. Like, I think the Bux Palma is a great example where I reviewed it, and then like 6 months later, The Verge wrote about it, and like I've seen it in other places, and like people are kind of like,
it went viral.
There's just enough there, enough there for people to say, like, enough people say that that's interesting to me. And so I love that we live in this era, but I look at this and I think that ain't it. So if it's for you, I also wanted to mention, because I talk about page turn buttons a lot when
you do
comes to e-readers, right? Because I like them. I think they're good. I think they should be on devices. You don't have to use them, but it's nice that they're there, and that Amazon has decided that they're bad and nobody should have them anymore. And I got a bunch of people wrote to me, including one person who wrote to me and cross-posted it to multiple social media services, which is like, don't do that. Like, cross-posting promo is one thing. Cross-posting to reach someone, like I literally answered the same question on 2 different services, and then I realized it was the same guy. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But I got a lot of people who said, hey, but Jason, here's your solution. And they sent me a link to a thing that is absolutely not my solution. So I'm just going to mention it here, speaking of weird reading things, which is there are devices out there that are basically like a remote finger. You clip them to your Kindle, and it hovers. So you clip it to the side, and the end of it hovers over the screen, like right on the side of the screen, ideally not blocking your view, although you may have to. And it's awkward because this is like back when we had clip-on book lights for the Kindle. It's awkward. It's a thing clipped to the side of your Kindle or Kobo or whatever. And it's got a remote control. And when you click the remote control, the little finger goes boop and touches the screen and advances the screen to the next page. This is not what I'm talking about. I don't need a remote finger. I have a real finger. My problem is that I don't want to use the finger. Now, I will say, if e-readers, and this is the problem with this product. So this product, I have friends who use this product. I have a friend who uses this product because she doesn't want to, she's got some medical issues. She doesn't want to hold the e-reader. She's got a little stand that she can put the e-reader on, and then she can get under the covers in bed, and she's got the little remote, and she can go click on the remote and it advances the page. And she doesn't have to touch the device or hold it or anything. It's great. But I will say, all of these device manufacturers should just support Bluetooth remotes, right? They should support Bluetooth remotes. There's no reason that a remote finger clip-on thingy should exist. You should just be able to pair a Bluetooth remote and then click forward or backward or whatever. But none of them do, which is madness. Yeah. I think the Books ones do, because they support Android, so they can support like a keyboard. So if you made a remote that was just right arrow, left arrow, Bluetooth profile of a keyboard, I think it would work. But mostly not. So it's not what I want, because what I want is to hold it in my hand and then just sort of squeeze with my finger or my thumb and have it advance the page, because it feels really natural. But again, it's a weird product, but I'm glad it exists. Like, we live in an era where somebody has hacked a way to get a remote control on a Kindle, even though I don't want it. My friends use it, and that's great. But it's not what I want. What I want is a button I can push. And a clip-on finger is not a button. I can't believe I used that sentence, but there it is.
No, and neither are e-ink glasses.
Neither are e-ink glasses, which I think come with a button, or they've got a gesture. I don't even know how they work.
It looks like it comes with a thing you put in your hand.
Yeah, like a little controller that you use. Yeah. Well, that's nice. That's nice. If you want, I don't know. I would be creeped out by not being able to see anything but the book in my face, but I don't know. It's good.
Yeah, here we go. Handheld remote. It's got a case. Yeah. Proprietary charging cable, which is always fun.
Oh, great.
That's what you want.
Yeah. Why? They made that decision. Why?
I'm a little concerned their website boasts that 500 something books were downloaded in 2024.
Okay.
That's not very many.
That's not a lot of books.
Minutes read, 325,000. Pages turned, 377,000. Not a big market.
It's very much like this is a real product. Yes, it's real.
It's real.
So that's good. It's like when I was doing Upgrade and we were talking about the keyboard that is also a trackpad, which was that Apple patent, and people wrote in and said, "Oh, there's a real product that does that."
Yeah.
Oh.
I think you should email these people and get a press unit.
Oh man, I do not want it. I do not want it.
Okay. Well, the link will be in the show notes. Go check it out. If you work for Soul Reader and you've heard us talk about this, reach out to Jason. He wants to review this.
Okay.
Please.
Stephen, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's always so much fun to do an upgrade. You and I don't get, I think we say this every time, you and I don't get to talk tech very much on the shows. And here we are. It's great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you filling in for Mike, who got to take his very nice Thanksgiving trip that he likes to take.
Yes.
And but we'll talk about Thanksgiving more in Upgrade Plus, which you can get by being a member or going to giverelay.com and giving yourself or somebody else a gift. The greatest gift of all, a
podcasts.
Send us your feedback, follow-up, and questions at upgradefeedback.com. Remember, upgradies.vote if you want to send us your votes for the Upgradies. That'll really help us. I write lots of things at sixcolors.com, except for last week where I wrote very little, but that's okay. It was a weird week. My podcasts are here at Relay and over at theincomparable.com. And Stephen, tell people where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, so I'm here on Relay. I co-host Connected and Mac Power Users, come out on Wednesday and Sunday, respectively. And I write over at 512pixels.net.
We exist in social media. You can find us. Search for Stephen Hackett or with a PH or ISMH. You can find me. Jay Snell is usually what it is, although in some places I might be something else like Snell Zone. It's okay. I mean, find us. We're there. But we're not going to give you a list of names because it's too many now. It's just too many.
Mm-hmm.
Clips of the show are available on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We are at Upgrade Relay. The full show also gets posted at YouTube. If you are a YouTube-focused person, focused human, and prefer podcasts on YouTube to podcast apps of choice, we're there for you. And thank you again to our members who support us with Upgrade Plus and to our sponsors. Once again, they were... Mike's so good at this. They would Delete Me, Smarter World, and ExpressVPN. That's who they were. And you heard me. If you're not an Upgrade Plus member, you heard me read those sponsor reads, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're an Upgrade Plus member, you're probably not missing anything. Anyway,
what is happening?
I don't know. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Stephen, for being here. And we will see you next week, and Mike will be back then. Goodbye. Say goodbye, Stephen Hackett.
Bye, y'all.